Hi there. Now we'll be looking at BCG matrix. As you know, it's quite famous. It's a product portfolio matrix, and essentially what it tries to do is it tries to classify your products. In most cases, very commonly, it's products or services that you have, but sometimes you can even apply it to SBUs, divisional level. If you have different businesses in your unit, and each of those businesses have different market shares, there's some kind of internal competition which you can pitch one against the other, and you can get relative growth rates and market share. Then you can use BCG matrix and apply it for divisions as well, but mostly it's for products and services. What you do is you classify them based on two metrics, and one is relative market share and the other is market growth. Now, relative market share is relative to what? That's the question. Relative to the market leader. So you'll calculate your market share in relation to the market leader. Now, if you were the market leader, then obviously what will happen is you're looking at yourself relative to the market leader, which in this case you are, and that means the relative market share is one. So remember this: if you're the leader, your relative market share is one, because you're dividing your market share by your own market share, right? That's how the calculation works. But if your market share is less than the market leader, whoever it is, market leader's market share, then it will be your ratio, your relative market share will be less than one, right? It means that you're at a lower market share. Now let's see. um so here what happens is, oh, okay, market growth, of course, you can use the compounding formula. You can use different ratios, but most commonly it's revenue, right? Revenue growth rate is considered to be the market growth rate. So what you do is you take those two metrics and you see whether where you belong, where your products belong, and it may be high, it may be low, it may be medium. Depending on that, you would position your products. Let's see. So this is just a quick snapshot, an overview of the BCG matrix. So you have here on the x-axis market growth and on the y-axis relative market share. And what's happening is you're basically classifying both of them into low and high. So if you have low market share and low market growth, you basically call that product a dog, because small share of low growth market, right? But if you have low market share but high uh, market growth, then you basically have a problem child. It means that there is a product that has high potential, but the market share is currently low. So you're obviously, uh, you would term it as a problem child, but what you're trying to do is you would try to expand the market share of it as soon as possible. Now, on the other hand, if you have a product that is of high market share and low market growth, high market share but low market growth, which means you have a product which has captured a good amount of the market, but its growth has stagnated. So you're basically, from product life cycle, you're talking about a mature product, right? If it's not growing fast but it has a high market share. So in such a case, like maybe Coca-Cola or Pepsi or things like that, you're basically looking at a cash cow, because you've got the market or the size that you need to extract as much as you can. So you treat it as a cash cow. You try to get as much cash as possible, because you never know when the market share is going to crash. Uh, and finally, if you have a product or a service or SBU that falls under high market share and high market growth, so it already has high market share, but it's still growing at a rapid pace. You have a star. That's the ideal product you want. You want a product that is excellent with its market share, that has a lot of consumers, and you also want a product that is growing, is continuously growing and growing at a fast pace, high level of growth. So if both of those are combined, you've got a really strong product with you in your case. I suppose at one point Facebook was a star, right, under the Facebook group of companies. If you look at it from the portfolio of applications they own, that Zuckerberg owns, Facebook would have been a star, especially back in the 2010 2015 time period. High market share, gaining high market share and also high growth rate. So what happens with BCG and how we can use BCG is essentially one is the classification, because the classification is helpful for us to understand what kind of product do we have. But more importantly, it also helps us strategize. It helps us kind of decide what we have to do with this. So I'll just give you a basic example. If you take a star, a large share of high growth market, what you're basically thinking is, okay, so this is the perfect ideal product that I have, right? A star. So you wouldn't have any fears of reinvesting and adding more power, investment power, backing the product up, by marketing, branding, strengthening the system around that product. You would also try to keep the cash flows moderate. You would try to keep funneling it as much as you can, and you would also want to consider the potential of turning it into a future cash cow, because you do know that there is only so far you can go with high market share, because at some point, unless I guess the highest and the best position you can have is monopoly. If you hit 100%, if you like really saturate the market, then of course you've got the perfect position. So at that point, you've saturated and you cannot really grow further, right? So in such a case, then what will happen is that it will automatically turn into a cash cow, because you're not really pushing the envelope further. You're just trying to generate and extract as much value from it as you can, while it does hold that position. So similarly, what you can do is, you for each of the products that you have and each of the areas, the problem child, dog, cash cow, and star, for each of those areas, you should be able to strategize and come up with what to do, how to respond, how exactly do we. Because with a problem child, you would really want to push it further. You would want to convert it to a star or a cash cow. With a dog, you might even think of divesting, moving away, abandoning the product. So you want to be able to make these decisions fast, in a way that is value adding to your business. um, in the other sense, it also helps you identify if you have a balanced portfolio, because it's good to have a problem child. If you have a few stars and few cash cows, it's okay to have a few problem childs as well, because that at the time when one of my cash cows is saying that it's time for it to call it quits, then you do know that you have a problem child that you've been working on, that you've been feeding, and you've been taking care of, that you can easily reinvest and promote and try to push further and bring it to a star or cash cow status. So it's good to have a mix. It's definitely good to have a mix. If you don't have a mix, for example, I can give you Nokia, right? Nokia, which is a global phenomenon at the time. What happened with them was, at the time of decline of Nokia's decline, what really happened was that they did have the N series, which were really good, and they were cash cows and stars and all that. But they of course failed in strategic drift, because they couldn't really come up with the smartphone approach. The smartphone science eluded them. But in addition to that, what we can say is that they also didn't balance their portfolio. If they really knew that smartphone was the future, then they would definitely have worked on full screens, touch screen, smartphone kind of technology. And even though maybe not pushed it so far, they would have maintained such products in a low level at a problem child position, just so knowing that when we are able to identify that our N series and our popular products are slowly dying, then that's the time to promote this. Right? Of course, that didn't happen, and you know what Apple did. Rest is history. So it's very important that I mean, you have to hand it to BCG that they did a good job with this, but not very complicated. Not very complicated. Definitely, you've got the equations or the ratios of how to calculate market growth and relative market share here. Um, okay, so in the context of performance management, when you do conduct a BCG assessment, you have to be a little careful, because there are a few things that you need to consider. How are you going to manage the different categories? What KPIs are really relevant for you to measure the performances of each of those categories. How is exactly how the KPIs are aligned with the overall and overarching objectives and goals that you have set for yourself, etc. So by and in itself, you can look at the benefits and the drawbacks. Mostly, it helps you, determine a portfolio breakdown of your products and services. That's a great benefit, I would say. But it also can be used to strategize. That's the biggest benefit. It can help you decide what to do with each of those products that you've classified, if so long as your classification is accurate. Because sometimes what is high and what is low can get muddled up, where you draw the line. And if that is the case, and if you do when you do have a star, an actual star, but you think that no, this is a problem child, and you demote it, your strategies may be inappropriate to what it means. Because if you're demoting an actual star, because the fine line of where to draw the high and low difference, what you're essentially doing is you're kind of telling yourself that this is a product where our perception of it should be kind of negative, because you've classified it as a problem child, whereas your approach to it has to be positive. So in that itself, in that understanding, thinking that the consumer uptake for that product is not sufficient, or it's not good, whereas it actually is. So for you, the misinterpretation can be bad, because if you strategize in that inaccurate way, then your marketing, your messaging, your customer service around it, whatever you decide around it will be dependent on how you classified it. So if you get it wrong, then your strategies are going to get wrong. So you have to be a little careful. um there are so otherwise, it does tell you, okay, how to generally go about things. But specific actions, specificity is quite missing here. This is more of a more general tool, but you can definitely take a look at all of these that are available for you in the BCG analysis. And a bunch of information and the kind of questions that you can ask yourself with respect to whatever classifications you have. For example, here, cash cow, right? So if you have a cash cow, you can ask questions like, what is the net cash flow, and is market share being eroded? Because you want to protect a cash cow, right? If you have a cash cow, you want to protect it. So in such a case, your questions are always, one thing is, you're worried if that cash cow status is going to get lost. And how can it get lost? It's by losing market share. So you're thinking, am I losing market share? In addition to that, if it's a cash cow itself, of course, you're going to be worried about cash flow. Not necessarily worried, but keep a track of it. What gets measured. It's quite important. So as you can see, you are able to make such decisions with the BCG matrix. That's how BCG can get used. So it's important for you to understand BCG, how to apply it, how to classify products, and how to strategize depending on your classification. So thank you so much. I'll see you in another video.